Welcome back. I've got Chris March on the line. Chris, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you, Michael.
Really looking forward to this chat. We lined this up about 5,000 years ago. We both had, scheduling or scheduling issues depending on what part of the world you're listening to.
Yeah.
But I'm finally happy we're on. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself and then we'll jump into the conversation.
So I'm an executive advisor. I typically work with founder-led organizations, typically turning over between 5 to 20 million in revenue. I do a lot of work, which I call is founder gravity, where the business is scaled, but the founder is still the bottleneck. So that's where a lot of my work exists.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day too, where we get in the way of our own growth. And actually, I posted this on LinkedIn the other day because this quote
Mm.
that I've heard, I'm not the one that created it by any stretch, but it's what got you here won't get you there.
Oof.
A-
Yes.
And I think a lot of founders, they come up with something, then they get some success, they get to a
Mm-hmm.
level, and then the business is kind of, I want to say escaping them, but if it's good
Mm.
and you got a really good team, it will continue to grow. But then all of a sudden you find yourself, ooh, wait a minute, I'm holding this back. And it's quite the ego hit for many of us because this is our baby. It's all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this thing's kind of doing its thing on its own. And I think a lot of leaders, they're not prepared for that. So, you encounter it all the time. So, what are some of the, I don't want to call them, kickbacks or some
Mm.
frustrations that you see, but actually that might be the good question. It's like, what are some of the things that leaders that, are quite frankly the bottleneck of their own organization, what are some things and blind spots that they have that are really holding things back for them.
I think you hit a lot of the points, Michael, where the analogy of the baby is very true. You get into a business typically because you're passionate about something or you see a gap in the market and you continue to build a business by yourself and you reach a certain stage and then you add another person, then you add another person, and you've got two or three people and it gets you to that level and then it stops you from getting to the next level as well, right? So everything continues to flow back through to yourself as the owner, and you can't coach yourself out of a structural problem. And a lot of the things that I see is the structural problem within the organization, and that's where my a lot of my work starts is in that structure. So I really look at what is the organizational design of a company? How is that structured? Is it structured where the founder is the head of sales, the head of ops, the head of finance, the head of marketing? That's typically where people get it wrong, where they're doing delivery on the weekends, they're doing invoicing themselves, where if we were to take back that time and commercially justify the next role and the next role as you continue to scale, what does that allow you to do as the founder and do the work only you can do?
Yeah, and you ask them, so do you have like, standard operating procedures? Yeah, I mean it's like a handwritten note,
Yeah.
and they wrote it in 1996, and you're like, mm, thinking it
Mm.
might be due for a review. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's outdated, but it's outdated. Actually, there was an organization that I helped out several years
Yeah.
ago, and they said, we have an employee manual. I'm like, well, where is it? And
Mm.
they couldn't find it, and they said, okay, we finally found the hard copy of it. And literally, this
Hard
was
copy.
20. It wasn't. They didn't use a Xerox machine to copy it. It was actually it was created on a computer. Might have been DOS, but it was definitely a computer. And it was dated 1996, and
Yeah.
this was 2018. So it was old. And labor legislation. It was a
Yeah.
Canadian company, so there's been all kinds of revisions of HR law and things
Yeah.
like that. So I was looking through it and I'm like, "Ooh, this is like." this belongs in, maybe, it's like, is there a historical museum? Can I, maybe, I don't know if it qualifies for the ROM. Anybody that's from Toronto will know what I'm talking about. It's like,
Oh, the
it's
ROM.
not gonna, yeah, well, the ROM's absolutely, I love that place.
That's
Spend
beautiful.
way, yeah, a good buddy of mine used to be on the board of directors for a while.
Oh,
And yeah, he was always telling me, you got to come see this. It's going to be this. I'm like, all right, I'll give you a little tour. I can't show you everything, but I can show you something. So he's like taking us, kind of behind the scenes of stuff.
hmm
And it's like, the depths of that building is just like, it goes down to Middle Earth. There's so many levels of
beautiful.
stuff, but it's great. But again, I was like, okay, we need to update this. And entrepreneurs and organizations, they build
hmm
this thing and they get it going, but then it starts to scale, and all of a sudden, I'll use this analogy. Like you're a teenager and you
hmm
wear this size of clothes. Well, now you are in your, early 20s and those clothes don't fit anymore, but you're still trying to wear those clothes, but they don't fit.
hmm
And so many
hmm
organizations just continue down this path using things that don't really fit anymore. And
hmm
it's tough to let go. I find that a lot. A lot of leaders just won't let go, even though they know. You explain to them, it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense that we're using that anymore, but they don't. They're. It's like they're afraid and of the unknown. And then I know you do this too. You remind them. It's like, there was a time before you launched this business that you didn't know, but you still did it. And sometimes I think we forget that curiosity and that playfulness of being a new entrepreneur. And then our business grows and we kind of like, we're risk averse. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
It's a pattern I see all the time is that an owner or a founder, it relies too much on their own judgment. And when you do that, you haven't grown, you haven't scaled, you just grown the organization when you do that. So instead of a lot of times when we think about that as well, and I see this with different leadership teams, I'm sure you see this as well, is that we transfer tasks and responsibilities, but not decision right authority. So why are people continually looking up to you as a founder or a CEO? Because you've trained them to do that. They're waiting for your approval versus actually giving that decision right back to them. And to your point, that's the part of letting go and trusting the process because you've built something based on your own judgment, but it's only going to get you here. It's not going to get you there.
There's an organization I'm familiar with that is set up that way. The owner
hmm
of this business is everything goes through this
hmm
individual. And they were recently hospitalized, medical situation, surgery, the whole thing. And
Yeah.
it was one of those, okay, now when you're not available, what it's a combination of people. You have some people that are afraid to do anything because, like, well, we got to get their approval. And like, but business our customers need to have answers, or they got to get service, and we can't. It just doesn't stop. So it brought to light, and the owner recognized that finally. And they're like, ooh, maybe we need to have some layers. And for me, when I was leading organizations, healthcare, specifically, I did as much as I could. Later on, when I first got into it, I was that person of everything had to be signed off by me. And it got to the
hmm
point where my EA, my executive assistant, yelled at me. It's like, you can't delegate everything. Like, I'm gonna
hmm
try. And
hmm
I delegated with authority. Like,
hmm
you make the decision, you sign off on it. Here's your budget, constraints or
hmm
limits or whatever you want to call them. Keep it within that. If it looks like it's going to be exceeding that, please let me know before you get to the cap, as best you
hmm
can. But I trust you to run this. This is yours. Run it. I'm here to
hmm
help and guide you if you have any questions, because in many cases, those people never had that responsibility before. So they're like, what do you mean I can do this? And it's like, yeah, go ahead. and they most of them crushed it. They nailed it. They did it really well. They did it better than I could have done it. And that was one of those things like I you know this better than I do. So you should be the one with the sign off on that. And we're slowly starting to see this a little bit. And I'm reading a lot of reports from Gartner and McKinsey and Boston and all these
Mm,
other groups when it comes to AI. And my opinion on AI, I mean, there's, lots of positives, lots of, I'm not sure yet. It's early days
mhm,
still. But what it, for me, my hope anyway, is
mhm.
that it's going to force organizations to go, you know what? We need to look and see how things flow in this company before we add anything with AI. And it's bringing to light, those things that we've been sweeping under the rug
Uh,
for eons. So, love to hear your thoughts on that.
AI is an accelerant. It's not a silver bullet. A lot of organizations, I'm smiling because I hear that is because they don't have SOPs, they don't have workflows set up. If you don't have SOPs and workflows structured within the organization, AI can't magically come in and fill that gap. So a lot of people are missing the first step. Say, oh, let's bring AI in. No, do you have structure, SOPs? Can this business truly run without you? So
Yeah.
it's really AI is a great tool, it's an accelerant, but you've got to fix the fundamentals before you can bring in the automation.
Yeah, I saw a study actually this morning from Gartner. They're estimating that 40% of AI projects are going to get, you know, canceled or they're going to stop in 2027 because of
Mm,
this.
yeah.
They don't, they're like, they're spending all this money
Mm,
and they're like, well, we're not getting, any results from it. It's like, well, you're
mm,
accelerating bad decisions. You're accelerating bad design, bad systems, bad
mm-hmm,
workflows. You're just
mm-hmm.
basically going, okay, let's fail faster. And I'm sure, I know John Maxwell talks about, failing forward and all of that.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, look, it's forcing something that they should have done a long time ago. And it doesn't matter the size of organization. There are some gigantic companies that
Mm-hmm,
you look and you go, how are they getting anything done? And
mm-hmm,
it's just by accident
mm-hmm,
or just enough things are falling into place where it gets done. But it's
mm-hmm,
it's it, it's an opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity for companies to go,
mm-hmm,
let's take a step back. Yes, this is going to take longer than you probably want it to, but
mm-hmm,
I'd much rather you spend money and invest if you're going to deploy some type of AI solution in your company,
mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm,
you've got an understanding of what you want it to do and what benefits are you looking for, because you say, well, we're going to roll out AI, for what? And they look at you and they go, well, everybody else is doing it. Oh, all right, what's that? If everybody jumps off a bridge, are you going to do that too? Because it's basically what you're doing with your budget. Your CFO is going to be not happy, and there's only so much Tums they can buy at one time. So I'll sure they can order it in bulk. But yeah, that's the official candy of CFO is Tums. Yeah. I should get Tums to sponsor the show, maybe, but that's another story for another day. But again, you see it, I tend to see it. We can go into an organization. It's not like we're quickly judging. It's just we've seen
mm-hmm,
things so much, and humans can be predictable. And you can kind of gauge, I think I know what might be an issue here, not the issue, but an issue. And if they're open to it, and I highly encourage every business owner, please be open to seeing the things that you can't see. You're too close to the situation in many cases. And somebody
mm-hmm,
that can come out and go, and with the vast experience that you have, looking at and working with all these different organizations at different levels, you pick up some tools along the way and you see some things and you go, all right, I think this might help you here. And
hmm
if it's a 10% improvement, 10% is gigantic. And a lot of organizations, they're like, "Oh, I'm not sure." It's like, it's easier to pivot if you're moving than if you're standing still. And too many
hmm
organizations just go, we don't know what to do. And then they just stop. And it's the
hmm
worst thing ever to see that happen. We lose too many good organizations because they just get frozen.
And that's a big part of what I do. And that exact point costs organizations in operational capacity millions of dollars on the bottom line. Typically, what I'm seeing is between $1 to $3 million for anyone that's turning over between 5 to 20 million potentially that can cost in operational drag and risk. And to your point around the AI, it's a pattern I see with a lot of different business owners. It's shiny ball syndrome, right? We want to chase the shiny ball syndrome, and AI is definitely that. And before we get to that path, again, a pattern I see is that a lot of the SOPs and the IP is in owners' minds. So they need to document it and get it down on paper. And there's a lot of great tools thanks to AI. I generally recommend you can dictate into chat. Claude, Loom also has video option now as well, which you can create SOPs. So it's never been easier. You just need to step back and make time for it as an owner because there's nothing more critical than that.
Yeah, and even there's ways to do it. One example is, especially when you're training one of the AI models, doesn't matter if it's
Hmm.
ChatGPT, Claude,
Yeah,
or Gemini, or any of them,
whichever one. Yeah.
is you ask it to interview you. And
hmm
this is one thing for anybody that's kind of fearful about AI or they're not sure how to use it. A
hmm
great example that I saw the other day was, imagine you were hiring a human being. It's going to be your EA, your assistant, or your COO, or your chief of staff. And
hmm
you're training them, you're onboarding them.
hmm
Behave the same way with this. You just
hmm
imagine they're on the other end of the screen and you're just typing to them.
hmm
Talk to it that way, and it kind of takes the edge off a little bit, and you get a little bit more comfortable doing it. But asking it to interview about you. Okay, what's the mission of the organization? What has changed since you launched it? What are you excited for the future? Really get deep into it so that way it can start building up some a database or a reservoir or a library or a memory,
hmm
whatever you want to call it, where
hmm
it knows a little bit more about it. And then you can say, okay, well, let's design this. And of course you can always say, all right, if it was available years ago when I found that 1996 employee manual, I could easily upload a PDF copy of it and say, okay, based on Canadian HR law as of 2026, please review this document and give me an updated version. Get it to there. I do recommend that you still use an HR firm to vet it because each industry is a little different. You got different legalities and rules and whatnot. But it gets you about 95% there instead of dropping that 96 edition on there and going, okay, update it. It's going to save you some money, from the HR consultant side. They're going to be happy that they got a much closer version. But there's so many different positives to it to help you kind of
hmm
move along. I wouldn't go, it's not 100%. And I gave a keynote talk a few weeks ago in California to the municipal clerks of California.
hmm
And, they use it a lot for meeting notes. They all wish it could automate elections. And like, be careful what you wish for. Yeah, elections, that's kind of a
That's a
funny,
slippery slope.
that's a slippery slope in the States. It's like, but they use it, for meeting notes and municipal clerks. There's a lot of
hmm
meetings, and the
hmm
stats show that the accuracy is about 70 to 80%. Okay,
hmm
so it's not
hmm
100%, but
hmm
it does save them a ton of time, and it allows those minute takers to listen a little bit better. Because if
hmm
you're sitting here just taking shorthand and you're all that stuff, you're just gathering information. But if you're actually present in the meeting and you know, okay, somebody else is taking notes, but I want to listen a little bit more, it actually makes the notes a lot more deeper and knowledgeable. So we kind of ventured off a little bit on the AI side, but let's bring it back into a leadership and a bottleneck component there.
Mm,
These tools are available now to help you
mm,
kind of, like you just said a moment ago, mind
mm.
dump. Because
Yeah.
going back to that owner that was hospitalized. Let's go, worst case scenario here, and
Hmm.
he doesn't survive. All right.
Mm,
Well, now what?
mm.
And are there all the steps? Who do we notify? Who takes
Yeah.
over? Is there someone that's designated? He does have children. Um, are they in good relationship or not? Because family dynamics are an interesting thing. So it's like, how's this go?
Mm,
And meanwhile, all the employees of the organization were like, am I gonna have a job tomorrow? And that's not a fun place to be for anybody. So leaders, get that information out, and
mm.
plan of attack and all of that. It just makes it makes things cleaner.
I see this all the time is that business owners, you get into business because you're passionate, you want to have more time, you want to have more freedom with your family. However, I find a lot of business owners, founders are then fully constrained by the business. They haven't taken time off for sometimes a year or years potentially because they've created that founder gravity. So to your point, one exercise that I really like to work with people with is we're going to set up for when you go away and look at what breaks when you go away. That's a good structural understanding of what is broken and what is not. If you can't step away from the business for a 2 week or 3 week holiday, you don't have the business. You have a very expensive job. And it contradicts everything that you wanted to get into business for. More time, more freedom with your family or yourself, and more profit at the end of the day.
I love that. And that's, I think, every organization, even ones that, do have that, it's a good, okay, snapshot in time going, okay, where are we?
Mm,
if I'm, like in my own personal life, I was a director for a healthcare organization, ironically, and then had
mm,
my cardiac event and I was gone
mm,
for 17 weeks. There were systems in place, not
mm,
as much. There were a few things that the board had to take care of, but most
mm,
everything else ran. And they still
mm,
saw patients and did all the stuff like that. But there were a handful of things that came about that we didn't think of. Uh, but it was a good example of, okay, thankfully I survived it. Um, if I would have died, then well, that would have been on them, and it wouldn't have mattered to me. But for me, I was like, oh, it was a good exercise for me to go, all right, one, take better care of myself. Don't forget to do that, folks. That's kind of important. Secondly, is okay, a snapshot. Where are we? If I am off grid for a week, like I said, what breaks? And I think
mm,
every organization should do that, N- not just at the C-suite level, but all the way
mm,
down. um,
mm,
and and then that way you can go, okay, well, how do we address it? Because then if something happens, everyone knows what to do. It's like the fire escape plan in office buildings. Okay, if there's a fire, you go to this thing.
mm,
Um, and of course, everybody forgets it, and they all go to the wrong door when we do a fire exercise. But that's all right. We correct them. It's like go where everybody else. Well, I shouldn't say go where everybody else is going, because if
Look where the
everybody's
hard
going the
hats are.
wrong, yeah,
Yeah.
look for that. Yeah, if you see somebody and they've got an axe or something like that, they're going to tell you which way to go because they came in the safe way. They're going to probably take you out
Mm,
the same way. So in closing, what would be one? I know there's so much advice that you give, but for an organization that it's like they've been thinking about this and they're like, oh, I'm not sure. What's one thing that without giving away your secrets,
mm.
what's something you usually will say that can help them go, you know what, we need to do this.
With the founders that I typically work in, the first thing I'm going to look at is how do they spend their time? Are you reactive or are you proactive? If you show me your calendar and it's just open-ended, there's no scheduling, no structure put into that week, I can almost guarantee you're leaking probably 10 to 20 hours a week. Time is an infinite product that we do not get back. It's our most important asset. So how are you spending that time?
Yep.
Audit your
Mhm.
time and
Mhm.
audit your systems around it.
Yep. Because as I like to say, there ain't no cure for time. Um, so,
It, it
so
seems so simple, and that's a lot of things that I've worked with found it seems so simple, but to your point, I think we covered this at the start, is that you just need to be made aware of the things that you don't see. And that's a lot of the work that I do.
you do some amazing work. So, love this conversation, Chris. Where can people find out more about you and this awesome work you're doing?
Two places. Firstly, on LinkedIn, I post 2 to 3 times a week talking about the work that I do with founders and also different things I'm seeing in the leadership space. And secondly, on my website at chrismarchadvisory.com.
Awesome. Love to have that in the show notes. So, Chris, great talking to you. Great finally getting you on the show. Appreciate it. I was 12 when we lined this up, and I'm not 12 anymore. So I'm really thank you for your patience and really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks so much for again for being on the show.
Thanks, Michael.